It was while growing up in Fort William during the 1950s and 60s that this future NHLer developed the athletic skills that would see him go on to enjoy a hockey career spanning over 800 games in the pro ranks. Success came early when his team, the Maple Leafs, won the 1958 Knights of Columbus Pee Wee title. Moving up to the Bantam division, he added the 1960 district title to his record. His talents earned him a coveted spot on the Fort William Canadians juniors. He spent 2 seasons establishing his reputation as a rugged player who wasn't afraid to take on the role of policeman. When not on the ice, he could be found making a name for himself, playing for the Selkirk High School Rams in football and the Lakehead Rugby Football Union. Named the Rookie of the Year, he was picked up by the Port Arthur Mustangs for their 1966 Western Canada playoff run and then asked to attend the Saskatchewan Roughriders training camp. When the Port Arthur Mars were looking for some players to bolster their forward line, Coach Ab Kaba convinced Bob to join his squad in their quest for the 1967 Memorial Cup. Although unsuccessful in claiming the national junior title, Bob did catch the eye of the Toronto Maple Leafs, who then selected the big left winger as their first choice in the 1967 amateur draft, 16th overall. His first season in the pro ranks saw him in the International League with the Port Huron Flags. He had 11 goals, 26 assists, and also became a fan favorite as a team enforcer, a reputation that would stay with him throughout his entire pro career, as would his nickname, Battleship. Splitting the 1968-69 season between Port Huron and the Columbus Checkers, he then moved into the American League with the Providence Reds. A rookie on the squad, which featured fellow Lakehead players Joe Zura, Tony Goygan, and Eddie Katcher, and along with coach Dave Creighton, he spent a fair part of his time on the bench until the chance of "We want Kelly" finally got him on the ice when he didn't disappoint his many fans. Rejoining the IHL with the Des Moines Oakleys, he earned 49 points in 55 games during 1971-72, and his combination of strong offensive skill coupled with his toughness caught the eye of Don Cherry, the coach and general manager of the Rochester Americans. His performance in 1972-73 saw him as the team's second-place point getter with 27 goals and 35 assists, and turned out to be a springboard to the NHL for both him and Cherry, who has always credited Bob with making Rochester the great team it was. Cherry once said that with Bob on the ice, every one of his players grew a foot taller because they knew he was there to back them up. Making his NHL debut with the St. Louis Blues, he took to the ice October 10, 1973 as a 27-year-old rookie. Skating with the club for 37 games, he had 9 goals, assisted on 8 others, and then was caught up in a 6-player trade deal in January '74 that sent him to the Pittsburgh Penguins, and he added 17 more points to that rookie season record. To say that the Pittsburgh fans loved him, well, that would be an understatement. To many fans, he became a hero as he defended their star players, such as young rookie sensation Pierre LaRouche, who set scoring records as his line mate. And whenever he'd step out onto the ice, the arena organ would often play "Anchors Away," and the local Navy recruiting command even presented him with an honorary membership. Combining his enforcer role with his hard and accurate slap shot, he netted 27 goals in his first full season in Pittsburgh, added 25 more the next, and had 5 goals and 3 assists during the Penguins' 1975 playoff run. In each of his 3 full seasons with Pittsburgh, the team made it into the playoffs. Picked up by Chicago as a free agent in 1977, he spent 2 seasons with the Blackhawks and finished up his NHL career following 78-79 with a record of 425 games played, 87 goals, 109 assists, and 687 penalty minutes. Remaining in Illinois after hanging up his skates, he started the next chapter in his hockey story by coaching varsity teams at the new Trier High from 1982 to 1988. He led them to the 1983 Metro and State Championship, passing along his knowledge to the next generation of hockey stars. Since his early hockey days in Fort William, one of Bob's biggest fans has been his wife Elsie, who along with his 3 children, Karen, Kim, and Jason, have been an important part of his career. No doubt they are just as proud of him as are the many Bob "Battleship" Kelly fans who followed him throughout his professional hockey career.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome into the Northwestern Ontario Sports Hall of Fame, Bob "Battleship" Kelly. Bob traveled here tonight from Point O'Barrel with his wife Elsie and members of his proud family. Also here tonight are some of his fellow players from his time at the Lakehead who were pleased to see him after so many years. We do have a couple of messages to read tonight. The first one says, "Congratulations, Bob, on your induction into the Northwestern Ontario Sports Hall of Fame. I remember you as an awesome punter at Selkirk, and I have followed with great interest your outstanding hockey career. Sorry I can't be with you to celebrate this special evening." It says, "Best wishes, Lee Batstone, Bob's former high school football coach." And the second message, "When I became GM and coach of the Rochester Americans, I said to the paper, the first person I want is Battleship Kelly. He was committed to Baltimore, and when the GM of the New York Rangers said, 'Would you still like Bob Kelly?' it was one of the happiest days of my life. When the GM said, 'He's in Toronto now, how do you want him to get to Rochester?' I said, 'I will carry him on my back to get him here.' As I said in my book, Kelly Made Me, Bob had the whole AHL terrorized that season. He was the toughest guy in hockey. Bob went on to score over 30 goals for the St. Louis Blues the next year and had a great career in the NHL. Bob is very worthy to be in your Hall of Fame," and that's from Don Cherry. Ladies and gentlemen, Bob Battleship Kelly.
I think this is the part that just about every athlete hates. It scares the hell out of you. And I said, "Well," Diane said, "You got 2 minutes." I said, "Well, I got a few things to say." I know I got more here somewhere, but anyway, it's, you talk about a surprise. I don't think anybody was more surprised than I was when I got drafted, I think, by the Toronto Maple Leafs, and probably Ray Aduno and the rest of the guys in the team. And when I got the call from Jim Proudfoot from the Toronto, I think it was the Toronto Globe, and I hung up on him the first time. I thought it was Ray or one of the guys pulling a prank. He called back and he said, "This is Jim Proudfoot." I said, "Yeah, right, Ray." And I hung up again. So I was working at Lakehead Newsprint at the time, and the boss there wasn't a very pleasant person. So when they called back again, he says, "Take the damn call." So that's how I found out I got drafted. I'd just like to thank the Northwestern Ontario Sports Hall of Fame Committee. Dave, boy, we go back. I looked at those old pictures. Holy cow, that's scary. Bantam and everything else, his staff. It was always a pleasure to call into the Hall of Fame when I talked to Diane or talked to Kate. Because you came away and I told my wife, I said, "I don't think I've ever felt better than after I've talked to these two ladies. They were so upbeat, positive, made you feel very, very good all the time." I'd like to congratulate the other inductees. It just makes me feel that much better to think that I'm thought of in the same light as these Hall of Famers that were all announced tonight and the inductees today. It's kind of overwhelming. I said, other than getting married and having 3 kids, I don't think I've had there's been a better day. It's funny, this all started with an old pair of skates. When I was playing for the Canadians that year, when you first get to junior hockey, you get your first pair of tack skates, CCM tacks. You went down to Petrie's, they were $50 a pair, which was a lot of money back then. And so I had a new pair of skates, stick them in the hydrocollator, stick my feet in them for a week to break them in, suffered the sore feet and everything else. Then it hurt my knee, had a cast on. In fact, Gary Venerose's girlfriend at the time was my nurse. And I told her, I was listening to a junior game, and I told her he got hurt that night. And she was all in a tizzy until I told her I was only pulling her leg. So that didn't go well when I needed something to get rid of the itching in the cast. Going back to the old skates, came back after a week. I took a hammer to the cast after a week, couldn't stand it any longer. Went in, getting my equipment on for a practice, got all dressed, went to put my skates on. There's an old pair of skates there. And I said to Bert, the trainer, I said, what happened to my new skates? He says, well, Mick said to give them to Smitty. I said, oh, really? So I said, well, what am I supposed to wear? He says, wear the old ones. So I looked at him and I said, well, you can take the old skates, tell Mick to stick them 2 feet up and choke on them. Took my gear off and I walked away from hockey for 2.5 years. And just when you learn, you're really progressing and everything. Good timing. Anyway, thanks to Ab Cava, they kept pushing and convinced my wife into letting me play because that wasn't going to happen, according to her. The journey just took off from there. I went to Toronto's camp. That was a bit of a joke because everybody wanted to be my friend. Me, being from Thunder Bay, thought I was a nice guy. Was happy to have all these friends. Find out later that they're all terrified that I was going to beat the hell out of them. So I met a lot of friends, but I didn't make any teams. They sent me back. They said, you're going back to Fort William. I said, okay. I said, by the way, who was the last player chosen? And Davidson said, well, my son, who played in Tulsa the year before. I said, well, I heard about your son. I said, he scored 3 points, and he played 50 games last year. I said, I'll score 50 goals sitting on the bench, or score 3 points sitting on the bench. So anyway, I got even with them. Maple Leaf Gardens, I chased Eddie Shack around the whole rink twice. It looked like the Keystone Cops. He'd high-sticked one of my teammates, and I went after him, caught him behind well, I was on one side of the net, he was on the back of it. He was standing there grinning like a Cheshire cat. That guy could skate like hell. I couldn't catch him even with a rocket in my feet. Then he headed, a couple of their guys tried to get in front of me, Tagger Williams and Dan Maloney, and I told him, I said, I'm not in a good humor right now. And I said, I'd love nothing more than to slap the hell out of both of you. And Eddie Shack took off then, jumped over the boards, ran down the hallway to their dressing room and sat there. And I went over the boards and I told him, I said, well, we got 2 more games with you. I said, you hit the ice, I hit the ice, and then you're going to really hit the ice. So, anyway, some of the seasons we had, my wife and I, my biggest supporter, my biggest critic, knew when to stick the pin in the balloon to knock my ego down a peg or 2. The one year we were in Providence, went to Des Moines. From Des Moines, went to Oklahoma City with Johnny Adams. From Oklahoma City back to Des Moines, from Des Moines to Omaha. And she was expecting our third at the time. I said, if there was a Hall of Fame for hockey wives, she'd be number 1 on the ballot. When we first heard that you had so many people there was 10 people at a table, and I looked at Else and I said, we're going to be awful lonely sitting there, you and I talking to each other. I said, I really didn't think anybody was going to be coming from our side. Harry Barrow and his wife Phyllis and Steve and the gang. And had an assistant coach of mine when I was coaching the high school hockey in New Trier outside of Chicago. My assistant coach, Bob Orr, it's not Bobby Orr. It's Bob Orr, O-H-R. He's been a good friend of mine for over 50 years. And he even flew up from Chicago just for this. He said I wouldn't miss it. Yeah, I look back over the years and I look at the players that I see that come out of Toronto, come out of down east, come from out west, the number of players that are in the NHL. And I've got a friend, Tom Lundy, who's an old referee in Point of Barrel, where we're living, and he met Bill Morrow, and Bill Morrow is a big promoter of athletes from Thunder Bay, as everybody's probably aware of. And he said there's more NHL players per capita come out of Thunder Bay than anywhere else. And I just look at the inductees today with Lou, Chris, Irene, John. It's just a pleasure to be included in with this group. And I've always told people, one other thing was a problem, my nickname came from a guy named George Patrick Duffy, who was the marketing and PR guy for the Rhode Island Reds. And kind of stuck with me. They had, they said they gave me an honorary ensign. I asked them if I'd get a pension with that. They said, no, we get a picture of the last commissioned battleship. I said, what's it worth? But anyway, I've always been, everywhere I played, everywhere I've gone, I've always said one thing. I'm proud to be from Thunder Bay. Thank you.